Hey guys, welcome to the Guitar Rig Pro channel. My name's Ben, and today I want to talk about Mac versus Windows. You know, Guitar Rig from Native Instruments, like most audio workstation or plugins, works pretty good on either Mac OS or Windows. And I just want to be a bit iconoclastic and controversial and say Windows audio processing may actually be better than Mac, much to the chagrin of most of my Californian friends here. But I can prove it to you. So I run Guitar Rig Pro 5 on a 2017 MacBook Pro. This is the 13-inch MacBook Pro, so it's the one with a Core i7 dual-core 4-threading CPU. So fairly recent, fairly fast CPU. It's got more than enough power to do audio processing and then some. And I have 16 gigs of RAM on this machine and a 1 terabyte SSD that's built into the motherboard. On here I've got my Rig Control 3 going in through the Type-C dongle here. Going on there, let me just make sure we've got the audio using Rig Control 3, yep. 96K, 224 samples. It's necessary, this is a whole separate subject for video. I could do a lower sample rate, but a lower sample rate will double the latency because you need, at least about this many, like 200 or so samples to have decent audio without it dropping out or glitching too much. And so we're always having a trade-off between number of samples for processing time, which the more you have, the more accurate it is, and the more time the CPU has to process the signal, but that increases the latency, and much more than about 11 milliseconds latency becomes unnatural, and you really notice, and it affects your playing as a guitarist because you're hearing this delay. You hit the string with a pick, and then the delay between that and hearing the sound becomes noticeable, for me, much beyond about 11 milliseconds. So I have 11.3 milliseconds, which is about right, with 224 samples latency, and that happens at 96 kilohertz sampling rate. I could increase the sampling rate to reduce latency, because that drops it down to 7.5 milliseconds at the same number of samples. But that drastically increases the load on the CPU, because it has to do, in this case, 192K is double 96. So it has to do twice as much work in the same amount of time. And we find that the CPU begins to drop out. So I've found the best overall balance for latency versus processing power. So here we are, Mac OS. Sounds alright. Functioning. I normally also put on high CPU priority. Click this, because if anything else is running on the computer in the background, it can take up more and you start getting glitches, and glitches is what we want to avoid. So this sounds fine, but notice when I change patch, it's going to make a liar out of me now. delays you have, you can get a little bit of glitching switching. You can hear that, but every now and then I get a tiny dropout. Let's find a more complicated patch to try and get it to do what I'm. You can hear that. That click, click. So that's what I'm talking about. Hopefully it's coming through in the sound on the camera there in the recording, but so I'm happy with my tone, but every now and then I'm just getting these click, click. Patch is not super complicated. It's not, and most of the effects in it are bypassed. It is using the split mix. I've noticed this does happen more with things like using the split mix and cross-fading between 2-hole amps. But I've just got the lead 800 there, detune, coolplex there. That's what I'm hearing right now, the coolplex. Then that just goes through a common delay and reverb, and that's it. And the loop machine, which I don't know why that's in there. It doesn't even need to be in there. Okay, so just to prove I'm not on drugs, here we are back in macOS on the 2017 MacBook Pro, Core i7, 16 gigs, 1TB SSD. It's a pretty decent machine for almost everything. It's only the smaller one, so it does not have a GPU, but Guitar Rig Pro does not use a GPU to accelerate anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart, and this is exactly the same computer, same laptop, same hardware. I'm dual booting with you'll see the Windows icon appear in a moment. So I'm dual booting to Windows 10 with Boot Camp. Here it comes. And just to compare Guitar Rig Pro in Windows on the exact same hardware. Windows versus macOS. It's booting up here. Better log in. Okay, here we are, and if anyone's interested in that photo, you can like this video, subscribe, and shoot me a comment. We can exchange contact info, and I will send it to you. So I'll just go ahead and launch Guitar Rig Pro 5. Great. I'm really happy that Native Instruments make their software cross-platform for these reasons. And I like to run the software more or less full screen. I run it live full screen when I'm actually doing it. So let's just go full screen here. You see we have pretty much the same controls. We'll just look up here at CPU just idle with the pretty much one of the same patches that I was demoing before. We're at 18 to 20% CPU utilization in Windows in the high priority mode. But let me find the exact same patch so we can compare apples to apples here. So it was, what was it, Come to the Altar? Come to the Altar, this one. This is the same patch, so I shared it from my Windows partition, Mac partition to Windows. Now we've jumped up to 25%. It's half the CPU utilization compared to when it's running in MacBook in Mac OS. Now let me go out of mute here. A little, not quite so loud this time, but let me turn that volume up there. Maybe the input volume needs to go up a little too. Just had my levels set differently for the weekend. Same patch, same guitar, same everything. The only difference is I'm running this on Windows 10 versus Mac OS. And let's see. Oh, it's this one. This one, the first switch on the rig control. So I can go different patches. It's like two patches in one using the split mix. Back to the cleaner one just to be more cognizant of glitches or anything. But I'm not getting any glitches. And you can see that just from the CPU utilization here. This is not going red. This was flashing red on and off all the time in Mac OS. Windows 10, same computer, same hardware. And I'm running the latest Mac OS, the latest Windows 10 update, Mac OS Mojave. There is pretty much, because for work I use Windows, so there's more software and background programs and tasks running in this Windows instance than there are when I'm booted into Mac OS. There's nothing else running that I've installed because I basically don't use it for anything but Guitar Rig. So honestly, given that there's a difference in performance here and things are just better in Windows, honestly, if I go, let's just check one other thing. One other thing I needed to compare is audio and MIDI settings. And we're on 48K in Windows with half the number of samples for latency. So we have the same latency even though we're half the sample rate. We were on 96 before, so let's tilt that up. We're a little under 11 milliseconds latency there. So yeah, maybe we'll get it to glitch in Windows if we bump it up to 96K. So let's see. Now, obviously, you can see right away we're using more CPU because we're forcing it to calculate twice the number of samples in the same amount of time. So let's go back to full screen. So instead of around 20-25%, we're broaching 42. Still. Still not hearing any glitches or any dropouts or anything like that. Now let's change patches, we'll see. We still get a little bit of it changing patches. Still not even getting close to 50% CPU utilization. So, you know, for me, even at higher sample rates with better quality processing, you know, HD audio as they say, which honestly you can't tell me that you can tell the difference. Anything above 48K is really good. And but even at 96 with a dual Core i7 laptop, Windows 10 is a clear winner over Mac OS for Guitar Rig Pro. That's the end of the story, as far as I'm concerned. So maybe it's the operating system, or maybe it's the way Native Instruments did the development for both OSs. Maybe they put more effort into the Windows version, being from Europe. But I don't know what it is. All I can say is I get lower latency and no dropouts or glitches when running Windows.